So in today's video, I wanted to talk about something that I'm sure we can all kind of relate to, and that is not having enough time in our day to practice guitar, or not as much time as we would like to practice the guitar, and ways that you can actually practice the guitar without a guitar in your hand. It might sound kind of crazy, but bear with me. Before I became a full-time musician, I was a man of many hats. I worked my first job was on a farm. I used to work in a produce department. I then worked at a record store. I then worked at a pet food store. I then worked at a musical instrument store. That was a pretty good job. And then I became a barista. And then I became a 100% full-time freelance musician. But while I was working those jobs that weren't music related, I was always playing the guitar, and music was the most important thing in my life, and I couldn't seem to get my brain to stop thinking about it. Now, it wasn't actually until university, when I was working to pay my way through university and make sure I had a roof over my head, and food in the fridge, that I started to get crafty with ways that I could use just my brain to get better at music and practice the guitar in my head. And you might be thinking, well, if you just think about practicing, that's not really going to do anything for you. And the funny thing is, they've actually done studies about this. There was one done at Harvard, I know, where there were piano players, and there were 3 groups, where one group was told to practice a set of exercises for 30 minutes a day. One group was told to practice in their head, so they could look at the music, but they could not physically play the piano. They could look at the music, or they could just think about it in their head, and they were supposed to practice it that way for 30 minutes. So they're supposed to visualize themselves pressing the keys. And then there was one group that was told not to practice the exercises at all. And as you would expect, the group that didn't practice the exercises at all didn't really make any meaningful improvement. The group that practiced them for 30 minutes a day obviously made a decent bit of improvement. But what was cool to see is that even the people who practiced it mentally had similar results to the people who physically played it on the piano. So when you use this visualization, you're actually training different parts of your musical brain to be working, which is awesome. You aren't getting the muscle reinforcement of it, but you are training your brain what it would look like and feel like to do those things. And even maybe more vital than that, you're training a skill that's called audiation. And audiation is something that a lot of professional musicians have. Some amateur musicians have it as well. They just have lucky genes or whatever. But for example, if I looked at a sheet of music, I can pretty much hear the music in my head. It might be in the wrong key because I don't have perfect pitch, but I can hear the intervals and I can see all of that. And so let's say you're at work, it's an office job, you work hard for your money, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of maybe dead space, or you spend a lot of time daydreaming. Well, what if you use some of that time to practice some of the stuff that you're working on at home? So let me share some examples of some ways that I used to practice things when I was either restocking the shelves of the pet food store, or when I was, making a couple thousand coffees a day. Now, of course, when I worked at a music store, I could actually practice some of the stuff on the guitars. It wasn't encouraged, but I could, of course. But let's say I'm learning a new scale. Let's say that I was working on G Dorian. So I know the G Dorian looks like this. If you don't know G Dorian, I do have a video all on it on my channel. So let's say I was learning that in 5 positions all the way up the neck. What I would do while I was mentally I wasn't mentally doing the task. While I'm filling the shelves at the pet food store, I'm running through in my head. I'm physically seeing, and again, I'm closing my eyes here. You don't have to close your eyes, but it might help. I'm seeing myself go, okay, 3rd fret of the E string, 5th fret of the E string, 6th fret of the E string. And I'm trying really hard to visualize it and run through the shape in my head, up and down, as many times as you like. Then say I go to position 2, I'm visualizing that shape in my head the whole time. I'm going up, going down, going back up to my starting and ending note, so on and so forth. And then the crazy thing is, if you get home from work and you're like, let's see if that worked, you might find that you're more proficient at it because you've practiced it in your head. Now again, the caveat to this is this way of practicing takes a lot more mental energy, and it's a lot less fun than actually playing the guitar. But if you can find yourself, even if you just have 20 minutes at your job, say you have dead space that you'd normally just spend, clicking refresh on your email or whatever it is you do at your job. If you spend just 20 minutes doing this a day, you've added over almost 2 hours of practice time to your week just by thinking about it, which is pretty awesome, because again, we don't always have as much time to play the guitar as we would like. I always tell my students, even as a professional musician, sometimes I don't get to play enough guitar as I would like in the week. But so that's an example for scales. Now, say you're working on some chords to a song. Say you're working on a song that goes D minor, C, B flat, A. Those of you who are in the know may know that that is the chord progression to Money for Nothing by the Dire Straits. And let's say in your head you're trying to think of some different ways that you could play it than just these bar chords. Let's say you wanted to put in some practice with your closed position triads. So maybe that looks like, so that was D minor, C, B flat, A, all in root position on the D, G, B strings. And now in your head, you just try to figure out those shapes. So you're seeing, 12th fret, 11th fret, 10th fret, 12th fret, 10th fret, 10th fret for your D minor. You see 10, 9, 8 for your C. You see 8, 7, 6 for your B flat, and then you see 7, 6, 5 for your A. And you're just, again, you're visualizing yourself going through this progression in your head. And again, it seems kind of crazy, but I swear to God, it works. It starts coming more and more familiar, and when you actually go to pick up your instrument later, you might be able to play it perfectly first try. Of course, if you wanted to take that further, you could then think, okay, what if I used inverted chords? So what if it started with D over F, D minor over F, or D minor with the third and the bass. And then it goes to C major with the third and the bass. And then it goes to B flat with the third and the bass, so on and so forth. And again, it takes a ton of mental focus and energy to do this. So 100% be kind to yourself while you do it. And if you totally get burnt out of it, even if you only get 10, 20 minutes in, that's a win. And you can use it to help progress your guitar journey. And if you don't believe me, one of my wonderful students, Greg, actually told me that he did this kind of to himself. He did write out on paper, but he was stuck with his daughter at the dentist for an hour. And he was practicing things mentally, and when he picked up the guitar, he could see them and they were getting easier. So this is actually a real thing that you can do when you're away from your guitar, and you can do it. The one other caveat I will say is, please, for the love of God, do not do this while you're driving or operating heavy machinery. Only do this in a space where it is generally free, maybe wasted time, or maybe time that is just, again, you're just kind of idling. Don't do it when there's important things at hand, because it can be distracting and it does take a lot of mental energy. But I just wanted to share that with you, because I know in talking with my students and in talking with a bunch of my subscribers here on YouTube or my patrons on Patreon, that there's a lot of you who wish you had more time to dedicate to the guitar. And this is a really good way that you can do it. If you can practice the song that you're learning in your head, or you can practice the scale that you're working on in your head, when you go to pick up the guitar, it will start to get easier. And then again, this way of practicing can almost be like playing the guitar, in that it takes a while to build your skill to be able to do it effectively. Like, there are many times now where if I'm having a conversation with a fellow musician, even if they play a different instrument and they're telling me about something that they were working on, I can visualize and tap into this in my head and see how I would do what they're doing or talking about doing on the guitar. And it's a super useful way to get more practice time out. And again, a lot of us wish we had more time to play the guitar than we do in the day. So it's a really good way to just work on that and improve our, overall time spent dedicated to music without actually, we don't have to divorce our wife and abandon our kids kind of situation. So that's pretty much it for me today. If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. It really helps me out more than you could know. If you have your own story about practicing in your head, I'd love to hear about it in the comments, whether it worked for you, whether it didn't, or whether you're feeling inspired to try again. If you want to take a guitar lesson with me, there's a link to get in touch with me down in the description. I'd love to work with you on whatever's troubling you on the guitar. If you want to support me and all the free content that I put out here, you can subscribe to my Patreon. There's a link down in the description as well. Every week, my patrons get early access to videos as well as some cool kind of behind the scenes stuff that I don't post here on YouTube. So if you want to support me, that's a great way to do so. You also join a wonderful, friendly community of like-minded guitar freaks. If you want to support me another way, you could also purchase my ebook full of scale and arpeggio diagrams or my video course all on triads, all over the neck, and multiple ways to practice them. It's a great way to support me, and you also get some awesome educational content for yourself. And last but not least, I've got multiple videos coming out every single week, so I hope I'll see you in the next one. And until I do, I'll wish you a wonderful day, and I hope you have some fun playing the guitar. Thanks.